welcome to Bobs and Blackness. My name is Cheyenne, and today I'm going to be talking about a very, very special album. Ever since I heard this album for the first time, it's had a hold on me. And today is the 26th anniversary of this album, and I'm talking about this beautiful body of work, Older by George Michael, his third studio album. Older was such a turning point in George's career, and it's just everything about it, like everything that inspired it, is just so beautiful. When I heard Older for the first time, I believe it was back in January. Yes, it was in January, at the beginning of January. I had already been full on in my George journey. So when I heard this album, I knew it was gonna be good already, like, cause that's just what he does. But when I heard it for the first time, I was completely blown away. I wasn't shocked at how amazing he was, at how amazing he is on the album. But what I was shocked by was his experimentation and the sound of the album and the direction he went, which is completely unpredictable. Like, when I heard the album for the first time, I was just shook. Like, everything about it is just beautiful. The story, the message, there's just so much that can be said about this album. I'm not gonna ramble too much, but I'm so happy about this album. It's definitely my favorite George Michael album, and ever since I heard it for the first time, I've just been like, I'm still blown away when I listen to it. Like, I listened to it earlier today to prepare for this video, and it's just like, I don't ever get old for me. So in this video, I'm really just gonna be talking about this beautiful album and why it means so much to me. And yeah, I'm gonna talk about some of my favorite songs on the album. It's just one of those albums that like I have nothing, there's nothing that I would want different about this album. Like, everything about it, it's just a perfect body of work. So I'm just gonna read the track list just for those who haven't listened to it, just so you can get a little bit of an idea of the vibe, I guess you could say. So track 1 is Jesus to a Child. Track 2 is Fast Love. And then we go on to Older, Spinning the Wheel, It Doesn't Really Matter, The Strangest Thing, To Be Forgiven, Move On, Star People, You Have Been Loved, and Free. So it's an 11-track album. It's a little bit over an hour, I believe. It's like, this album, when you first turn it on, it's like you get this most smooth, beautiful instrumentation, and it kind of sets, Jesus to a Child really sets the tone for the album, of like its subject matter and kind of what we'll be getting from George, message wise, lyrically. This is just such a poetic and symbolic and metaphoric album. It's just so beautiful. I'm gonna, like, it's so hard to choose my favorite songs. I'm not gonna talk about every song in depth, but I will talk about my favorites, which, like I said, it's hard to have favorites on my favorite album, because it's just like every song holds such weight and means so much and contributes so much to the album as a whole. But okay, I'm like looking at this trying to make a decision on what I should talk about. I'm gonna start with Older, which is the 3rd track on the album. When I heard Older, the title track, for the first time, I was so blown away, because like, it's everything I want in a song. It has that jazzy influence, the horns, the sound. Like, every time I hear it, actually the first time I heard it, let me talk about the first time I heard it. I got this imagery of like a dark, rainy night in Harlem, like no one's around. It's just like, it just oozes that feeling to me, and it's just, I was pretty much sold by the time I got to the 3rd track on the album, which is saying a lot. Older is such a beautiful song. I just love his vocal delivery. I love the lyricism. It's just a song about growth and change and just it's everything. It's everything. Um Spinning the Wheel, track 4 is another favorite. It has the same qualities as Older, the song before. Um it has the jazzy influence that I love. Like whenever George taps into that jazziness, it just makes me want to it makes me wish that I could have sat down with him and had a conversation, like where does this influence come from? And that's something that I hope we get a little bit more insight into with the Older reissue in July, which I'm so excited for. I got that box set because I had to get it, but I'm really hoping that we get more insight into his influence for this album. Spinning the Wheel is just sonically, like, it's just everything. Like his voice is just out of this world. I'm trying not to talk about every track on the album because that's like very over the top, but like this, when you have an album as beautiful as this, it's hard not to highlight every song. But I'm going to talk about The Strangest Thing next, which is the 6th track on the album. Yes. The Strangest Thing, I have questions. Every time I come to The Strangest Thing, it just again makes me wish I could sit down with George and be like, what was going through your head when you came up with this? Because it's just crazy. Like I can't describe it in any other way. Like he has that like Middle Eastern Arabic influence with the instrumentation. It's just like I was just shook when I heard, like, I'm just gonna keep saying I was shook because this is an album that I did not expect to blow my mind the way it did, because I'm gonna talk about it a little bit in comparison to Faith and Listen Without Prejudice. Faith is very much a pop staple. I'm not taking anything away from it because I do love that album, and with the first listen, I was pretty much sold on George. I bought that album the same day I heard it. But Faith is George's diversion from Wham. You know what I mean? Like he was showing a different side of himself. He was showing himself as a writer, as a singer. It was very important, I think, for him to allow himself to have that separation from Wham. And I think he did a beautiful job with that. I love that album so much. And then Listen Without Prejudice, which came 3 years after Faith, was an elevation from Faith. I think George is an artist that completely evolved from one album to the next, and like that's a quality in artists that I really appreciate. So Listen Without Prejudice was like a step up vocally, a step up lyrically. Like he was just, I love that era, even though, you know, it wasn't necessarily a full era because of, you know, the way things panned out. It's just a beautiful album. Listen Without Prejudice is amazing. But when I heard Older for the first time, like what's different about it to me from the first two albums is that George was just, you can tell that there was a certain level of vulnerability that amplified with Older. And as we know, you know, he came to himself. He was discovering himself from Listen Without Prejudice to Older. We know that George went through a lot. You know, he came to terms with his sexuality. He met the love of his life, Anselmo, who the album is about. There was so much that changed that I would imagine encouraged him to be so vulnerable and be so open. And although a lot of the things that a lot of the decisions he was making creatively, as far as his image is concerned, were coded, I guess you could say. And it was kind of like, if you got it, you got it, and if you didn't, you didn't, you know. I appreciate his stylistic choices as far as his own style and as far as the music is concerned. I just, like, I wasn't born then. I was born in 1999, so this album was before I was even born. But as a newer fan, looking back and studying and seeing all the decisions he made that were so deliberate and just amazing. I can't help but feel pride and be so proud of him that he was able to be himself and come to an understanding of who he was, because that's just so important with artists. Because it's definitely, I'm not an artist as far as music is concerned, but I can imagine how difficult it must be to find yourself as far as creativity is concerned, and as far as your look is concerned. There's just so many layers to showing who you really are, and I can imagine that that must be difficult when, you know, labels are involved and you're pretty much considered a money-making machine to these labels and, you know, things of that nature. So George as a whole, like, I'm just very proud to be a fan of his because he's just incredible. But I kind of went off on a tangent with that. It's hard not to, because I just love George so much. The strangest thing. Okay, I talked about the strangest thing. I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent a little bit, but it's hard not to, because I really do adore George. He's an ideal artist for me. And like, that's something that I realize more and more each day. But the next track is To Be Forgiven, and To Be Forgiven, that is my absolute favorite George Michael song, period. That's my number one favorite song of George. Like, it will never be topped for me, and I've heard all his stuff. To Be Forgiven is just so, like, I love the flute, I love his voice. His voice on Older as a whole is so gentle and so soft and just warm, and it's just To Be Forgiven is a gorgeous song. I'm just like, when it took a while, it didn't take a while to grow on me, I would say, but when I heard it for the first time, it didn't really stick out yet. It took a few listens of Older to be like, wait, this song is like everything. Like, I feel like I'm not doing it justice. I really do encourage you guys to listen to this album if you haven't heard it. It's his best album, and he said it himself, so we agree. Like, he knows. And then Move On. I'm not gonna talk too much about this song, but it's a beautiful, beautiful message. It has that jazzy quality, like I keep mentioning. I'm trying to like narrow it down. Star People I'm just going right through the album. Star People is another favorite. I love the sound. I love his whatever influence that is. Like, I feel like it's very dense and house oriented. It has that runway vibe to me. Like, I just imagine like people or models walking on the runway to the song every time I hear it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful song. You Have Been Loved. I consider You Have Been Loved and Jesus to a Child like sister songs, because they're very autobiographical and based on George's love for Anselmo, and, you know, his loss of faith, and, you know, everything that he went through regarding his love in that relationship, in that situation. Just two very beautiful, gentle songs, and every time George performed You Have Been Loved, you can just feel the love and just feel the emotion. It's just beautiful. And then Free is an outro. I would call it an outro, because there's not much singing. It's more instrumentation, and it's the perfect way that he could have ended this album. Free is dirty, it's grungy, it just has that vibe that just is everything. And then he ends the song with Feels Good to Be Free, and that's the perfect way to cap the album. I feel like that's the perfect summarization of the entire album as a whole. So that's Older. I also have this was released in 1997. It's called Older and Upper, and it comes with another Older CD, so I have two. And the only real difference between this CD and the one released in 1996 is that this one's gold. So that's really the only difference. I prefer this one just because it feels more special, and there's no censorship on this album, because it was released I believe it was released in every country outside of the US. So you know how the US is with censorship. But I love this because it just feels so exclusive and special. The reason why I got this because it has 2 songs on it from the older era that were not released on the original CD. So I actually found out about these songs through George's compilation album released in 2006 called 25, which was for the 25th anniversary of the start of his career. And the 2 songs they're the last 2 songs on the second disc of Older and Upper. And it's You Know That I Want To and Safe. You Know That I Want To is just, it has that Marvin Gaye, Isley Brothers type of energy to it, and it's like, it makes me wish we got more slow jams from George because his voice is perfect for that. You Know That I Want To, I adore that song. And Safe, which is the last song, Safe is so beautiful. He performed that song during Symphonica in 2011 and 2012, that whole era, and it's so beautiful live. Like, I can see that he must have really loved that song because he performed it live, and like, I feel like it's a deep cut. Like, it's one that most people don't know. So yeah, that's Older and Upper. There's so much that I can say about this album. I'm so proud of George in that he was able to experience such a deep love that allowed him to find himself. That's not something to be taken lightly, because there are so many artists who don't have the real chance to be themselves and to express themselves and their sexuality to their fullest. Like, and George was a proud gay man, and I'm glad that he had the opportunity to be himself, especially like in the industry. He took a lot of flack for it and bear the brunt of a lot of homophobia because of it, but it never hindered his pride. And I'm just so, he was just such an amazing artist, and he's definitely gonna be one of the people I talk about a lot on this channel. I'm just so excited to have finally got this off the ground. I'm so happy to get started. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to be coming from Twitter and Instagram, so hi to all my friends from there. This is going to be so much fun, and I'm really happy that you guys came and watched, and feel free to leave comments and share this video if you like it. This is my first video, so cut me a little bit of slack. I plan on being more concise and organized in the future, but you know, I'm kind of just going with the flow because that's just the way I do things. I don't want to be too structured or anything. I just want to have fun and then talk about my favorite artists. So look out for more videos. I'm coming up with ideas currently, so I'm so excited, and I can't wait to see what becomes of this channel because I'm excited and I can't wait to connect with more people, and just I'm looking forward to it. So I thank you guys for watching this video. Check George out if you have not already. If you guys follow me on Twitter and Instagram, you know I'm always talking about him. He's my favorite right now. Like, I'm stuck on him, so it's not gonna end here. I'm happy, and I'm looking forward to whatever's next. I will talk to you guys later. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BopsInBlackness, and you will be hearing more from me soon. Bye, guys.